I wanted to do an update to the Sabbath movement series. If you missed the first video, I'll link that in the description. A follow-up video to that one is one called Project 2025, where the government's trying to mandate legislated Sabbath. That's the U.S. government, at least, attempting to bring about changes within the next presidential administration. The documentary behind this movement is called The Sabbath by Journey Films. It's an attempt to bring about an ancient practice of the Sabbath rest, but combining it with climate change and global solutions. The reason I follow this movement is because of what Exodus 16 says. Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. The Bible says God will test his people to see whether they will walk in his law. We're already familiar with the book of Revelation saying there is a test, a time of trial coming upon the whole world. If God tests his people in the beginning of the Bible and the end of the Bible tells us there is a test coming, a trial coming, I do believe we should consider every possibility as to what that test may be. We should also consider the Bible says there is a strong delusion coming, a delusion so strong, if it's possible, the very elect of God is going to believe a lie. The definition for delusion in that verse is a wandering, a straying about, an error, a wrong opinion relative to morals or religion, an error which shows itself in action. Exodus 20 says the Sabbath is a sign between God and us. The word for sign has the following meanings: a distinguishing mark, as well as a sign or a signal. The Catholic Church has claimed changing the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday was a mark of her authority as well. Since the documentary has been released, it's been aired in various churches and congregations, synagogues, and public television stations. It's received some news coverage as well. Sometimes you have to look for it, but it is out there. It's becoming a prominent interfaith movement. If you missed the first series, the Muslims would have Friday as their day of rest. The Seventh-day Adventist and the Jews would have Saturday as their day of rest, and all other branches of Christianity would have Sunday as their day of rest. Of course, resting includes giving the world a rest: electricity, the land, shopping, spending money, etc. Just looking a little bit at some of the discussions within this recent interview by the man who created the documentary, who's a prominent force behind its movement. But in the interview, he said it might be time to reimagine the Sabbath not as a religious position, but as a different position, which would include the environment. Sustainable development goals include having a longer lifespan because of better nutrition. The documentary and interview is quick to point out Seventh-day Adventists live longer because of their diet and taking a Sabbath rest. They referenced an Orthodox Jewish rabbi who said when God created the world, he said it was good. He was content with the world he had made. He said we too should look at what we have and decide that we are good with what we have and be content with what we have, and to say what we have is enough. The interviewer recalled fondly the 2003 blackout in New York City, where there suddenly was no power. He said when he saw people later, they were asking each other, "How was your blackout experience?" And everyone had a really good experience. The interview said we need to be open as to how we go about doing this, because the Jewish people during the days of the Blue Laws were sad because they wanted to honor their own Sabbath, but they had to close their shop Sunday for the Christians. The Bible says who is in charge of the Sabbath. It says, "Hallow my Sabbaths." The interview said we need to think about the Sabbath both for ourselves, the culture, and the earth. He said 1 day a week we need to say, "I have enough, I've done enough, and I am enough." They go on to talk about a tech Sabbath, a day where there's no technology use. A large focus in this whole movement has been the land. Even in this interview, they referenced indigenous cultures and they talked about how they steward the land well, but they don't store up in excess because having an excess tends to create a hierarchy. A book was recommended called Sabbath as Resistance. They said the ancient Hebrews resisted Pharaoh, and one of the ways they did so was the Sabbath. The Hebrews were working 24/7, building at the cost of other people's lives. While that may be true, I feel they have perverted and changed the definition of Sabbath, trying to turn it into a resistance movement and a movement toward climate change, rather than what the Sabbath actually is, a rest that we are supposed to observe on the seventh day as God commanded. In the interview, they said in America, Pharaoh is the industry. It will take you over unless you form some sort of resistance to the industry. The author of that book said Sabbath is the way to resist the new Pharaoh of our moment, industry. They said commerce has won, and they said one of the reasons behind that is the Protestant work ethic. This was blamed on blue laws, citing Walmart as an example, saying, "Look, we have to be closed on Sunday because of the blue laws." It was the imposing of a religion on another. Specifically, it was the imposition of Christianity on the businesses, and that's how commerce won. They said it was ironic because it was connected to religion. People could not view it as something that could be secular. So they're trying to show that you can have Sabbath from a secular point of view and make it work for everyone. They went on to say there has been a reimagining of the role of religion in culture in recent years. The interviewer said the Sabbath was given to individuals in community, not given to individuals. They went on to discuss the Jubilee years and the Shemitah years. In the Shemitah year, every seventh year, you are supposed to let the land rest. That is in the Bible. As you might imagine, the people who are behind this movement are very supportive of having the land rest and not growing any food during that time. They then go on to talk about the Jubilee year, which is every 50th year, or 7 sets of 7. Not only do you allow the land to rest on the 50th year, but in the Bible, slaves are set free on the 50th year. It's during this time also land is returned to its original owners. As they phrased it, a reestablishing of the reordering of the world around you. Mr. Dobbelmayr, who is the one who created this documentary, says that in the film, they are honest and they say that Christians were once slave holders. He mentions specifically the United States and how a large portion of the slaveholders were actually Christians or those who held to a Christian ethic. Mr. Dobbelmayr says it was practiced as hypocrisy that people claimed to be Christians, yet they did not free slaves nor return the land. This movement is being promoted in churches all over the United States. If you sign up for their newsletter, you will often get updates as to how congregations are showing the Sabbath film to their congregants. While these interviews are taking place, I think we can kind of guess as to where this is going in the future. I would point out, as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, the next Jubilee is in the year 2025. At that Jubilee, there will be the opening of the Holy Door. That is a door that is only opened during the Jubilee year. Revelation 3:8 says, "See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." Perhaps the Bible is establishing who is the one who actually opens and closes the doors, our Messiah. The Bible says there's a test coming, a time of trial. We may not know exactly what that test is, but we need to make sure we are prepared. We also need to remember there is a strong delusion coming, a delusion so strong, if it's possible, it's going to deceive us. 2025 could be a very significant year. It's the year the Sustainable Development Goals say they plan to end slavery in all its forms, and 2025 is also the year of the Jubilee.